Welcome back, all you sports and gambling fans out there. Today, we have some NCAA basketball betting coverage for you. And joining me here, Ross Benjamin, our SBR contributor. Now we're going to do a different thing today, and we're actually not going to cover a particular game. Ross is actually going to talk to us about Kentucky and which teams are their biggest threats right now. Ross, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing very well, Dex. Thank you for having me.
All right, let's kick this one off. Now, Kentucky, as you said in your article, is Kentucky's toughest foe. And I totally agree. I mean, after I read your entire article, I can see why. However, there are a few teams and factors that could upset the Wildcats and their perfect season thus far. Now, I saw that Michigan State, which is your southern dark horse team, is in the mix there. But besides that, I mean, what else can you tell us about all this, Ross?
Well, let's start with the first point that you brought up about Kentucky being the only team that could probably beat Kentucky. And let me explain that a little further. If the Wildcats play at the level they've exhibited for the majority of this season, you're going to be hard-pressed to make a case for any other of the remaining teams to knock off Kentucky. You just don't go undefeated in a power conference like the SEC and go 36-0 overall by accident, Dex. I mean, a lot of things, you have to be a little bit lucky along the way. They did win 2 games in overtime to start the SEC schedule, but for the most part, this has been a dominating team, and they've got it done on the defensive end of the floor. They're allowing opponents just 53.9 points per game and have held them to a horrible 35.1% shooting from the floor, and that's against not only the SEC, but a very tough non-conference schedule as well. You know, and then you look at how they can possibly be beat. And I broke it down to 3 specific categories: 3-point shooting, defensive play, and rebounding. They say the great equalizer, Dex, for college basketball underdogs is the ability to convert on a high percentage in a large volume of 3-point shots. The Wildcats have held opponents to a meager 27% shooting from beyond the 3-point line this season, and that's not given a lot of underdogs an opportunity to really even stay competitive, let alone knock them off. However, there's 5 teams left in the tournament to present a major challenge in this particular area. You have Gonzaga, who's shooting 41.1% from beyond the 3-point line. That's 3rd best in the country. Utah is also a very good 3-point shooting team at 40.8%. And then Notre Dame, Duke, and Michigan State all shoot, better than 38% from the 3-point line. So those are 5 teams that, if they're on their game with 3-point shooting, can stay competitive just on that factor alone. Then you look at the rebound per game differential of Kentucky at +8. And, you know, you look at their front line, it's amongst the most imposing, if not the most imposing front lines in all of college basketball. And the only way to stay in the game against Kentucky is to try to neutralize them to the best of your ability on the glass. Well, there's a few teams that are capable of doing so. Arizona comes to mind as the #1 team, specifically because of their best rebounding team in the country statistically. Arizona is out-rebounding opponents by a +10.5 per game this season. North Carolina, Gonzaga again, Michigan State, and Duke are also amongst the best rebounding teams in the country. And then finally, you need to get it done on the defensive end of the floor, Dex. In order to have a realistic chance of knocking off Kentucky, you have to at least hold them to less than 40% shooting from the field. There's 5 very good defensive teams that are left in this tournament, Utah being the top one at 38.3% field goal percentage defense. Louisville, Gonzaga again, Arizona, and Michigan State also fit the bill. Finally, I crunched all these numbers, Dex, in my 3 statistical categories, and I also implemented what I call the eye test, and I'm sure you've heard that with the talking heads on ESPN as it applies to college basketball, especially the NCAA Tournament, and my personal observations. And I combined all those factors, and there's 3 teams which I came up with that I think have the best opportunity to knock off Kentucky. #1 is a team that I've mentioned in all 3 of my key categories. That's Gonzaga. This team is a good rebounding team. They shoot the ball excellent from three. And in addition, they're an underrated defensive bunch. The 34-2, one of their losses came at Arizona in overtime and in the regular season finale versus BYU. They looked awfully good in dismantling Iowa in their previous NCAA tournament game. And then we have Arizona. They're not a great three-point shooting team, but Arizona is terrific defensively and statistically the best rebounding team in the country, as I already alluded to. They passed my eye test with flying colors. Specifically, they're the one team, Dax, that can match Kentucky's all-around athleticism. And then finally, Duke. This is a team that went 31-4 this year, and you can never count out a Coach K team at this time of the season. And this one in particular looms as a dangerous opponent for Kentucky, if that matchup comes to fruition. So those are the three teams I specifically like to have the best chance of knocking off Kentucky. Again, Gonzaga, Arizona, or Duke. And let me just clarify, Dax. They have to have a bit of luck, too. I mean, they have to catch Kentucky on an off night, and they have to excel in at least two, if not all three, of those key statistical categories in order to knock the Wildcats off.
Well, it's definitely going to be something interesting to watch. I mean, the way that they've gone this entire season, 36-0, as you mentioned, that's just impressive stats there. And I think that, they could make it all the way, at least in my personal opinion. But all those facts that you point out are very, very very important to actually consider when looking at the betting side of all this. Ross, as always, man, your insights are fantastic. Thanks for letting us in with all this. And let's do this again tomorrow.
I look forward to it, Dax. Thank you once again for having me. You have a great night.
You do the same. And everyone else that's watching, make sure to check back with us tomorrow morning for some more sports coverage and your free picks. Till then, for SBR Picks, this is Dax Floyd.